In this episode, I'm joined by Chris McGoldrick, founder of ListAssist, an AI startup that's rethinking how we search for homes. We break down how natural language, emotion, and smart data are powering a more human way to help buyers find the right home. If you ever wished search needed to be smarter, this is your episode. Let's get to it. Are you a real estate agent eager to unlock the power of AI to boost your productivity and scale your business? Then you're in the right place. Welcome to Real Estate AI Flash, the weekly podcast that takes AI from a buzzword to a business tool, making it approachable and actionable for agents like you. I'm your host, Rajiv Sajja, and each week I interview agents from across the country who are using AI to transform their careers. Join us on this journey to become an AI skilled agent and take your real estate career to the next level. Now let's get to this episode. Welcome to another episode of Real Estate AI Flash. And usually we have agents that are implementing AI, but today I believe we have a thought leader that is building solutions for real estate that I'm really excited to get into with Chris McGoldrick. He's I guess your title is what, founder and CEO of ListAssist?
Correct. Yeah. Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, looking forward to chatting about the AI solutions you're building, Chris. And obviously, you recently got acquired by Inside Real Estate, which is a great partnership in my mind. And I'm looking forward to seeing you end of the month as well. But love for the audience, before we begin, to get to know Chris a little bit. Tell us your backstory and bring us to today.
Sure. Yeah. Well, again, thank you very much for having me on. Always loved your show since we first kind of started talking. So very excited to be here. For me, so I'm obviously started a little bit different. I'm born and raised in New Zealand, where our team still lives and operates from. I had a background kind of in the startup space over the last 10 or so years. And then more recently, over the last 2.5, 3 years, has been in the real estate space, specifically in America, which has been awesome.
Yeah. So I meant to say this, but you're the first guest from New Zealand. Hopefully not the last. As our podcast grows, New Zealand and Australia and New Zealand are on my bucket list to travel with family at some point, I'm sure. So I definitely enjoy your accent for sure. So.
Well, now you've got another reason to come to New Zealand. So hopefully you come here before Australia, I think. New Zealand before Australia, for sure.
Yeah. So I guess I'm assuming you're a cricket fan, Chris?
Yes. So grew up playing cricket. Had some sort of back issues that kind of curtailed that. But yeah, love cricket. Yeah. Are you a cricket fan as well?
Yeah, it's like religion from India. If you're from India, it's like religion, there.
Yeah. But, they take it very seriously.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, but if India is playing Pakistan, just for the listening audience, it's like a national holiday. You don't have to declare it. Nobody goes to work. They're just like watching TV. So anyway, back to our podcast. So, obviously you're aware, since you're in the tech space a little bit, you're building solutions, you've been aware of AI's role in technology overall. But obviously Gen AI sort of November 2022 just sort of took off, and we've been on this exponential growth ride. What was your first light bulb moment, Chris, that you feel like Gen AI was going to play a big part in how you build real estate solutions?
So, it's a super interesting question. I think for us, just prior to that, we, had kind of begun our AI journey. I had a very natural curiosity, just being, I suppose, someone very interested in the broader tech industry, had a natural curiosity to it. And we were working on some agent solutions using generative AI. And then I think, like most people, the big kind of light bulb moment was the launch of ChatGPT. And perhaps that wasn't sort of, for me, solely just on the functionality. It was about the cut through that it got, right? It was about and I think they've talked a lot about the fastest company ever to 100 million users or whatever that metric is. And I think that was kind of when it was like, okay, wow, this has got seriously meaningful cut through, at such a broad range of levels and understandings, and admittedly, a lot of that was, a bit of novelty factor at the start. People that were saying, write me a poem that rhymes this way and does this. And, some of those initial use cases that were, reasonably novelty heavy. But yeah, I think that was the cut through of just how deep it went.
Yeah, for sure. And for the listening audience, if you're listening to this, you don't have the luxury to see Chris's t-shirt. I used to point out, if you watch it on YouTube, He's well branded with ListAssist and a green T-shirt. Okay, so I think he's at least he's you can give him an A+ for branding.
I
So
appreciate that. That's good.
yeah, so I've always wondered, when I met you for the first time and found out about your services. Fascinatingly enough, I was on another podcast, Chris, that one of my agents hosts a podcast. He said, "Where do you see home search going?" And I had never found out about you till then. This was like a year ago. And I said, I'm like just frustrated with home search today because it's just like beds, bats. It just pigeonholes you into how you want to search. And like a month after that episode release, I just found out, and you had already built this amazing solution that obviously is evolving, but where people can find homes with preferences that the way they want to search. And because home buying is a very emotional decision, it's not a logical one for the most part. So love for you to kind of talk us through the journey of ListAssist and what you're building there.
Yeah, so and yeah, it was very very fortuitous timing when we first connected, and your kind of interest around it, as you allude to. I think for us there were a couple of key things. So what I'd sort of noticed coming to America for various conferences and events, it's obviously a pretty complex industry with a lot of people involved, right? And it sort of seemed an industry where no one could really agree on anything. And what sort of emerged over time was, in my mind, I was like, hey, there is one thing that people do seem to be agreeing on here within the real estate industry. And that is that the big portals are taking too much of their money, too much of their commission, right? So our kind of thinking was, well, how do we kind of ride that wave? And we'd done some initial work on the home search piece. And so what we did is built this AI home search product, which we can go a little bit into the functionality, but in terms of the market positioning, given that we'd established, well, look, everyone seems to be agreeing that portals are just taking too much of their money. What we tried to do was essentially integrate it onto existing real estate websites. So a lot of the innovation that we're seeing or have seen in search is, people that try to make competing apps and maybe offer better fees or solutions in that way to agents. Whereas our view was that really doesn't help the agent a whole lot or team a whole lot, because they still don't own the consumer and that consumer experience from start to finish. So our positioning was very much trying to empower brokerages, teams, and agents, help them give consumers a reason to start their property journey on their website. And our natural language search simply allows a user to come and describe exactly what they want in a home and get total personalization without ever leaving your existing real estate website. So, we don't redirect them or take them away. We work with you on keeping your results and search experience exactly how you want. But instead of having to start with a postcode or a state or, whatever filters, you can say, I want a red house with blue doors, a big backyard, and, a 3-car garage, whatever it may be. And we deliver a series of results and match scores within that real estate website.
Yeah, and I've played around with some of your implementations, right? I mean, for the listening audience, just to get, most consumers are used to searching by location, price point, beds and bats, which are also criteria you can add. It's almost like natural language. You just type in like a prompt in an AI engine, and you can also say, I'm looking for a home that's a mile away from like a mall or a school, which are things that are important because real estate is all about location. And just the city or zip code is not enough of a location. You also want to add other points of interest around that. Like I did one, and we'll include a link in the show notes for places where you can go and actually play with ListAssist implementation. So I did one on the Nashville site that, one of our agents that you know very well, Gary Ashton, implemented this. And I basically look for homes that are within a mile of a Starbucks in a certain price range. If my daughter was to buy a home in Nashville, she would absolutely do that search because she's like a Starbucks guy. So, and that's an example of how you search by lifestyle in addition to location and beds and bats. Does that make sense, Chris? Right? Is that
absolutely? And I think there's a really important consideration that we haven't touched on. Is obviously we've talked a lot about that consumer experience and how that is superior. They can come on and just describe what they want, and it's like a stream of consciousness search experience. But where so much of the value is in that information that we essentially assign and capture with the lead and deliver that to the agent, right? So, instead of knowing Raj is interested in 5 Smith Street. I now know you want to be this close to a Starbucks, this close to downtown. You want a long driveway. So the ability for an agent to come and add value to this prospect is so much greater because they have all this additional information to be able to, not only talk to, but provide more immediate solutions to. So even if it is a very obscure search and there's not a specific match on your website, there is still so much power in now knowing that about your prospect and being able to manage that prospect and nurture them moving forward.
And it's interesting that's a good segue into the mining of the data of consumer search, right? Like as an agent, as we have all that consumer data, I could walk into a listing presentation. If somebody says they have a long driveway, I can actually show clients that are interested in a long driveway or activity happening, at least at a high level, beyond the bets, bats, and price, right? Makes sense. So like I could use it as to win listings based on the consumer data.
Yeah, and we do see a lot of our partners doing that, and for those reasons that you mentioned, right? Like it's though when you're pitching for a listing, you're obviously trying to tell the story of why this vendor should be using you to sell their home, and being able to say, hey, here's exactly what people are searching for on our website. I have all this information and data that nobody else in this market has. That will help you further optimize the marketing of your property, but also supports the fact that there's a very strong likelihood that the buyer or potential buyers of this home are coming to my real estate website when they come to searching for a property, which I think is a huge value add.
So I would love to hear from you about, I don't know if you mine this data, like you've implemented quite a few of these solutions across the board. And just like how an individual broker or an agent website that has this tool can mine their own data, do you sort of look at globally what kind of searches are happening from maybe to have you understand what is being more appreciated by consumers in a real estate search beyond beds, bats, and price?
Yeah, and kind of breaking it down to a state and city level as well as we're continuing to scale and expand quickly. So yeah, it's so interesting getting that understanding of what, because the way I look at it is like it's what's important to people in that area when it comes to their search for a home. So the value that can provide in terms of how to find, how to market, how to reach those people, I think is unlike anything that's existed in search before. So like as I allude to, like if you want people to start their property journey on your website, you need to give them a really good reason to, and we firmly believe we are that great reason to do that. And I think as well as we see this further progression in AI search, where at the end of the day, I don't think it's unreasonable that a consumer should be able to come to your website and just describe what it is that they want in a home, and that is how people search for everything else in their lives. You mentioned my green t-shirt. You wanted a green t-shirt like this, you would go onto Google and you would type in green loose fitting t-shirt and you'd get a whole lot of t-shirts show up, right? So the advantage of this implementation is there's no consumer education piece that's needed, right? Everyone knows how to search by just describing what they want. So it really aligns with that. And I think, at the end of the day, if someone can come onto your website and just describe and explain what they want, and get a good series of results and have a good experience, the likelihood of them wanting to go to your competitor the next day and start with a zip code and move around a map to try and find what they want, I think is very unlikely, right? It is an exceptional way to stand out in your market. Not to mention the data piece that obviously we've touched a lot on as well, which is just another kind of string to your bow as an agent trying to grow your business.
Yeah, for sure. So since you have a lot of data, are there some really funny, goofy searches that people have done? Is there a board in your ListAssist offices in New Zealand? This is the craziest search I've seen anybody do.
Yeah. So it's not on a board yet, but we could just about fill up a wall. There's some really interesting ones around princess type castles, pink houses, those sorts of ones that come up. Of the more interesting and potentially valuable ones are things like, homes with assumable loans, those kind of things that as an agent, it's quite hard to kind of bring that stuff to the surface in your engagements with the customer. And again, having that information before you've even met with them is so valuable. I
Yeah.
can't, obviously I'm not an agent. I'm not sure what I would do if I knew that you wanted a pink castle house, but, at least I know it, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, how you use that specific information, I don't know. But obviously, with the majority of our searches, they're very actionable insights for agents.
Yeah. So, as a result of this, I mean, obviously your recent acquisition or partnership with Inside Real Estate, where do you see that kind of catapulting List Assist?
So it is Inside Real Estate is the absolute perfect partner for us. And so they acquired us last month, the beginning of last month. And, we have really hit the ground running already with them. They've been an incredible partner for us with an amazing team. For us, it's about how, they obviously have a huge amount of distribution and work with, hundreds of thousands of agents across the United States. And so for us, it's about, how we can better leverage that data to, again, help optimize, agents and teams in the industry. So it's how can we personalize nurturing and following up? How can we automate a lot of those processes? And essentially get this across hundreds of thousands more websites. So, they're a great partner for us. And there's going to be some pretty cool stuff coming in the second half of this year.
Yeah, I can't wait to find out about it for sure. So I want to maybe double click on that pink house concept or specific searches. So I'm assuming data points, you're obviously scouring the description, listing description. What goes into knowing that's a pink house beyond the obvious description? Do you have any external third-party data sources in certain scenarios? Maybe not the pink house stuff, but obviously you get Starbucks distance from points of interest. So talk through the data points that go into servicing, showing the result.
So yeah, it's a great question, and there's a range of different kind of sources we use for data, as well as the MLS piece that you mentioned. But we also have our own technology we've built, like our computer vision, which I think you and I have talked about offline. So ability to understand property images, among other things, which just add layers to that data, which help us essentially with our logic serving the best or most appropriate homes at any given time. So, we can continue adding to that, which we are, as we learn more about how people search for things and how we can kind of be more valuable and more specific about finding their perfect properties.
So today, if I were to search for a pink house and the listing description does not have pink mentioned, but the picture of the house, the first picture, has a pink color, is that something you process and show that?
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. And then obviously, it would depend to what other things you'd requested, be it a bedroom or bath count or a price range or whatever. But yes, that scenario you mentioned, you would see it.
Or you could take a regular house that's not pink and maybe you can paint it pink in a virtual set. You can make the house pink, all right?
Exactly.
That's fun. So anything else you guys are working on List Assist that the listening audience would appreciate listening from? Like anything else that's coming down the pike?
Well, for us, our vision as a company for the last 2.5 years has been to be the most trusted AI business in the real estate industry. And aside from our home search product, which again applies to real estate websites, we have a series of agent tools, which at the moment are being offered for free through our website, which is just listassist.ai. And I think, the reason that we've made that free is we want to take down barriers for agents around AI, right? And we want to, in line with that mission of being the most trusted brand, we want to show them how much value we can add. We're not coming for agents' jobs. We talk a lot about trying to empower agents to focus on people, not process, right? So we want to be helping capture as much of the process and those kind of boring tasks as possible. So as an agent, if you head to our website, you can sign up for no cost and automate your listing descriptions, your social media posts, blog posts, all within the ListAssist platform as well. So I think that's a really good thing to come and give that a go and sort of get comfortable with AI. Yeah. And even just comparing it to how your current processes around things like listing descriptions. So yeah, I think that's a really good tool for your agents to go and try.
Yeah, we'll include a link to the all the links in the show notes as well, so you can get it. So that's good. So they can go and sort of create a free account. And what model are you using behind it, Chris? What large language model? Is it a ChatGPT API?
Yeah, so it's through OpenAI. Yeah.
OpenAI. Okay. All right, cool. Well, good. So, anything else on AI before I get into my final two questions that I ask all my guests?
No, I think that's good. I mean, it's certainly moving pretty quickly. So I think I think you as an agent or someone in the industry, I think continuing to listen to podcasts like this is a great way to kind of stay in the know in terms of, what's going on. And I think having a trusted voice like yourself, who's doing these podcasts regularly, is a really good way for people to kind of get some cut through as to what's actually important, because it is a very noisy space with a lot of fluff and a lot of people putting wrappers on things and raising heaps of money, or like making a whole lot of promises. So I think people finding a trusted voice, and I think you're a really good example of that in this industry, but I think that's an excellent way of dealing with how noisy a space it is.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Recently I was doing a keynote, Chris, and the whole theme of the marketing conference, 1,000-watt conference, was find your signal in the noise, right? And you could
That's
argue there's a lot of
message.
noise in AI, but there's also a lot of signal that might not apply to an agent that's listening to the podcast, right? There's so much stuff. So I felt like you should find your signal in a sea of signal,
Totally.
right? Like focus on things that help you and ignore the rest. And that's been our focus at with the podcast here too, to make AI approachable and actionable for real estate agents. And it's not a scary thing. You can start small, crawl, walk, run, and fly. I believe in that all the time. So
I so believe in that too, Raj, and that is why we've made those agent tools free. That crawl, walk, run, fly approach, right? Of like, this is your perfect, like, non-threatening, non-expensive, because it's free crawl, right? And yeah, so I think you and I are very much aligned there.
Yeah, that's awesome, and we'll put a link in the show notes as well. So I ask all my guests these two questions, and we've gotten some great answers. We would love for our listening audience to kind of find out, if you were an agent today, what is the one piece of advice you'd give yourself to focus on growing your business?
It's a great question, and you're right. There have been some great answers previously that I've seen. I think for me, it's about watching what the best agents do, and trying to apply those lessons into your own business. So watching people who are the best and trying to actually understand why they're the best, what they're doing, and how you can essentially replicate that in your own business. And I think what you'll find, based on the agents we're working for, is that those agents tend to have like an absolute commitment to delivering for their clients, right? Like, that's what they put above all else. And I think when you do that, a lot of the rest of the stuff just takes care of itself, right? If your North Star is taking care of your clients, a lot of the other stuff falls into place pretty well.
Yeah, that's great advice. I mean, not just go the extra mile, just be on the extra mile all the time, right? I mean, that's what successful agents have. Great advice. So finally, I mean, I don't know if you're a book or a podcast person, and it looks like you're both, when we talked earlier. So, we all listen and learn different ways, but there's some things that you've sort of maybe read or heard that have deeply impacted you more than others. So what is a book or a podcast our listening audience should tune into?
For me, one of my favorite authors is a guy, Malcolm Gladwell. I don't know if you've come across it.
Tipping Point.
Yeah, so Tipping Point's great. I mean, my favorite of his is Outliers. He's obviously a fantastic storyteller, and you can learn so much about human behavior through his writing. So I think Tipping Point's a great one. Outliers, as I said, is my favorite. Blink's another one that I think is exceptional. So the books that I've bought for a lot of people, actually. I think he's just an awesome writer. And then in terms of podcasts, I mean, there's so many great podcasts out there. One I'm listening to at the moment, actually, over the last couple of days on my commute, has been the Tim Ferriss and Rich Barton one, who obviously founded Zillow and Expedia, and I'm really enjoying that. A lot of Tim Ferriss podcasts I've enjoyed. So, and yeah, I think like we talked about before, just having a good podcast that can actually give some real signal outside of the noise and fluff that often exists.
Yeah, we'll put a link to both the book and the podcast you mentioned in the show notes for our audience as well. So, Chris, this has been fun, and I look forward to seeing you in Charleston in a couple of weeks.
Me too. Thank you so much for having me on, and thanks everyone for listening. And yeah, we'll look forward to seeing you soon, Raj.
Yeah, take care, Chris.
Thank you.
You made it to the end. Nice. My goal with this podcast is to elevate your AI skills every week. If you found value in the show, your goal is to follow, share with a fellow agent, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and leave us a review as it helps us reach more agents like you.